Go.
And we
Go.
are, I can't. And we are live, folks. Welcome to the Sit Down Standard, the podcast celebrating all the amazing things you can do while sitting, whether it's enjoying movies, watching television, or playing games. I'm one of your hosts, David Bray. I'm joined as always by Gerald Bales.
Hi.
Running out of breath. And not Jordan Peterson.
No.
It's just Gerald. That's all
Just
we
me.
need. Just Gerald.
I count as like two people in most states anyway, so it makes sense.
But before we start the podcast, I always want to let everyone know we broadcast the podcast live on Periscope. So if you're watching or listening to this, go to Twitter, follow us. And we post, what are they called? Notifications to let you know that we're broadcasting the podcast live. But before we start anything, which we normally get into what you're doing, don't worry, I'll sing, folks.
Yeah, I know you're waiting patiently
okay.
for that, but
But first, I actually want to open up with, we got an email bag.
second in a week or second time in a row.
It's very, very good. This is a good email. This is from one of our fans, Paul Sawyer the Third. I always want to be a third. Like, like third, fourth. Like, I had a friend that was like the fourth. I'm like, that's cool.
Yeah, but then you're like, what's his name going to be? We already know. Not very original.
Yeah, but if you can get to the fourth and fifth, that's pretty cool. Then you're like son of begotten. Like, I like.
I guess, yeah.
Anyways, his email is, I had a question for you guys and future topic for the podcast. So this is what he had a question about. He wanted to know if there's any comics that have ever plucked our heartstrings or made us shed some tears or flat out weep. Openly weep. He talked about he usually reads a lot of comic books, like the popular ones, Alien, Star Wars universe, anything from Dark Horse. He loves Dark Horse comics. But what he wanted to know was he recently read Superman Red Son and essentially got him pretty upset. He had tissues, reaching for tissues. And has there ever been a comic or any kind of superhero medium that has made you cry or plucked at your heartstrings?
Well, as regular listeners of the podcast know, I didn't really enjoy, not that I didn't enjoy, I didn't really read comics as a kid, so like my comic experience comes from me as an adult buying all the new Star Wars canon comics.
Yeah.
And none of those have really got me emotional or anything like that, whatever. But I did read a lot of comic strips growing up as a kid. I was a very big fan of, was it Farside?
Farside, yeah.
Farside's good stuff.
Yeah.
But
that's
ultimate
like funny,
favorite comic strip, and I think just all around, I mean, are comic strips same as comics?
Yeah, of course. I think so.
Yeah, Calvin and Hobbes, best of all time. And I'm pretty sure there are a couple times, I'm rereading that right now, I'm on the second book of
You got like the big anthology, right, of all
Yeah,
of
wife
them, right?
got it for me. Yeah,
that's awesome.
I'm on like the second book, but there are definitely a couple times in there where you're just like, man, that is like so like the writing is very good, the animation of course is excellent, but there are a couple times in the little story arcs where it's like,
Oh, so they actually have like continuing stories? I just remember it being like a 4-panel comic where it's like, oh, you have to tell it. It's actually hard to tell like a joke in 2 seconds.
Well, of course it is, but they have like overarching storylines throughout the strip.
See, I didn't know that.
Yeah, so there are a couple times there, like there's a part where he finds a little baby raccoon and ends up dying. You're like, oh, it teaches the kid about death and all that kind of stuff.
Okay.
We're like, oh, that's kind of sad, but yeah. Nothing where I've openly weeped or anything like that.
Just crying. Well, like I remember, like I always talk about, I would come watch it. I would walk in the room and she'd just be bawling and I'd be like, what's wrong? And she's like, Grey's Anatomy. So, like,
oh, there's been plenty of TV shows where I'm openly wept, but no comics.
No comics. For me, I always talk about this comic book. It's called Sweet Tooth. It's it's by, I can't remember his first name. I want to say it's Matt Lamore, but fantastic artwork. But this comic, I didn't cry, but I definitely like got choked up. Like when you're like you're about to cry, but you're like, I definitely did that at the end of this comic book because it's about, I want to say it's like 40 comics and I read all of them. And at the very end, it is such a perfect ending to the book and not a, it's hard. I don't want to ruin it, but it's one of those ones where it ends the way you want it to end instead of like a twist. Know what I mean? Like it's just it ends so beautifully. And the artwork is amazing in it. And the character goes through so much crap throughout the entire, I think I've talked about it.
You have multiple times.
Yeah. There's like a war where, or these hybrid, half human, half animal characters come where there's like this plague that wipes out a bunch of people and they seem to be immune from it. So it's kind of like they have to like register them or they're trying to gather up all these people to do scientific experiments on them. And this one character who's the main character, Sweet Tooth, is going through this journey of trying to get
Instead of Sabretooth, got it.
No, he likes candy. I think that's where he gets the nickname.
Well, what animal was he?
He has big giant deer antlers coming out of his head. And he's like a young boy. It's really cool. It's, like I said, I can't recommend it enough, but I did get choked up. I talked to Jordan about this because he's our comic book guy. And he said where he actually got pretty upset was with Civil War, which is pretty pro Pinkwit right now, coming out soon. So obviously there's a big division in that whole series where you have, Tony's team, Tony Stark,
versus
Iron Man.
yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But one of the big divisions in it is within the Fantastic Four, and it's when Reed Richards and Susan Richards, husband and wife, actually like break up, like divorce style.
Oh, one's on one side, one's on the other.
Yeah, because Reed Richards helps build like a prison in another dimension to put like superheroes who won't register, who are like rogue superheroes. And so Susan is like, "What are you doing?" Like, and so they actually like have like divorce fights in the comic book. So it's
All the other superheroes are like,
oh jeez. But yeah, nothing that's made me like openly weep. I do want to check out Superman Red Sun. Have you heard about this? So the idea is, I believe I'm correct in this, is that Superman, instead of landing in the cornfields of Kansas, lands in Russia.
Well, this one where it's like a Soviet symbol?
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I've seen that Superman before.
Yeah.
I wouldn't mind reading that.
Yeah, so you definitely he says it's excellent, so you definitely got to check that out. So thank you so much, Paul Sawyer. And
Thank
Paul
you.
Sawyer was one of our winners in our holiday giveaway.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so longtime fan of the show.
Thanks, Freckles. Sawyer lost joke,
Nice. Okay, so let's get into the part where I get to sing.
Here we go.
What you doing? What you doing? What you doing? Ba-da-da-da-da.
Perfect. Yeah.
A little bit of echo. I gotta add more.
All right.
Okay, Gerald, what you doing? What you been up to, man?
A couple things. Yesterday, wife and I went to go see Jungle Book. It's a new one directed by Favreau.
Boy, Favreau.
Yeah, boy Favreau.
So how was it?
It was really, really good.
It's getting excellent reviews all over the place.
Reviews, making a lot of money. It's another home run for the new Disney live adaptations of their classic animated movies.
I don't think they've
Cinderella
had
being the first, or like Alice in Wonderland was another one. Cinderella's more like to the classic tale, where Alice is kind of like a spin on it, but
yeah, and they're doing Through the Looking Glass, which is kind of cool. I like that they're actually going to do the other Carol story. Anyways, so we have Jungle Book now. Obviously, don't ruin anything for anybody, but you would say go see it. But is it the Jungle Book animated in live action, or did they take some liberties with storytelling?
They definitely took some liberties with the storytelling. It doesn't end the same way the animated movie does.
Cool.
So that's
Good.
one big thing.
Good.
We saw it in 3D. And this 3D
Really?
has probably been the best use of 3D I've seen since Avatar. Like, it's really good.
I don't enjoy generally the automatopoeia that they use, where the animals are talking in these movies. I think of like the Garfield movie where they move the little, and it takes me out of it. I would prefer it just like they don't move their mouths. Like they can talk. I don't know how to fix
that's
it.
another thing I was going to mention. Like, this is some of the best CG I've ever seen in a movie. Like, it's really good.
So it doesn't look
It doesn't
weird.
throw you off. And I was talking to Sarah about this after the movie, is like the only thing when it normally throws you off in other movies is when you mix CG elements in real life stuff.
Yeah.
This whole entire movie was filmed on a green and blue soundstage.
Really?
The whole entire movie.
And it looks that good. Because
not one step in the jungle.
Wow.
So everything CG. So I think that's why it probably looks better, because everything kind of
Really?
goes together. Yeah.
And that looked that good because
It looks great.
Because you always talk about, Star Wars, the prequels were all in front of a bunch of green screens, and you can tell. Maybe just technology now's allowed it.
Probably, yeah. And you see, like, there's a close-up of Shere Khan's face, the tiger.
Yeah.
Idris Elba. Also, all the voice actors did a fantastic job. But anyway, it looks so real. And it's just
How's Bill Murray as
good.
Blue, right?
Good. Yeah, really good. Perfect casting for
Now, I have a question. Does he sing? Is there singing in this
that.
movie?
There are 2 songs in this movie. It's the King Louis.
Yeah.
And
I
then
wanna be
Bare
like
Necessities.
you.
Yeah.
Talk
And Christopher
like you.
Walken sings because he's King Louis.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, I love Christopher.
Yeah, they did a really good job with the song. I didn't think there was going to be the songs in here, but
I figured it'd be
those
like-
are just the only 2.
That's good. Those are the only 2 everyone knows, right? Bare
Dude,
Necessities.
the elephants are my favorite.
Oh, the bump,
Dun,
bump,
dun,
bump,
dun,
bump, bump.
dun,
Yeah.
dun, dun, dun,
Yeah.
dun, dun, dun. But yeah, it's just a really solid movie. The kid actor that played Mowgli is excellent. Yeah, really good. Recommend go see it. See it in 3D if you like those kind of movies. But on 3D, has 3D gotten too real, David?
What do you mean?
Okay, so
Is it too real?
packed theater, and we're sitting next to this older couple.
Yes.
An older, like late
70s.
60s, 70s.
Okay.
And they're watching it in 3D, and his wife, oh my god, every single time there would be a jump, she's like, and like,
she
would
would,
put
like-
her hands out. Like Shere Khan, there's one point where he jumps out at Bagheera, and she's just like,
She actually loses it. She's like, oh my God.
yeah, and there's like 3 or 4 times during the movie that happens where she gets so scared and she like throw her hands up, and I'm just like, 1, it's hilarious. 2, maybe it's just too real. I don't know.
Maybe. I think the movie that I saw recently in 3D, I want to say it was one of the Transformers, and maybe the most recent one, or I don't remember which one it was. And it looked, I don't, with Avatar too, I don't mind the jump out thing, but that just feels like so cheesy. You know, it feels like the blue and red 3D glasses. I enjoy when it's a sense of depth. Think of like the Nintendo 3DS, where you have foreground and background. But now, because of the upgrading to 60 frames per second, and even I think it's even higher now, different frames per second, it actually gives you that effect of like a static background and a foreground and background type effect. Anyways,
Yeah. But the big difference is filming in 3D versus post converting in 3D, and I think that's where you get the really crappy 3D versus the good 3D. I'm pretty sure this was filmed in 3D.
Well, it should.
Looks
I mean,
like
it was all. It wasn't even filmed. It sounds
on location. Yeah,
exactly.
definitely go check it out. It's really great. Jungle Book. Anyways. I
else?
played a little bit. I've talked about Halo a lot on the show.
Yeah, this is your Halo cast. I love it.
Yeah, I mentioned this earlier that they're coming out with Firefight again, which I'm super excited about. Firefight was one of the modes that was introduced in ODST.
That's the waves of bad guys get stronger and stronger. And you have to hold out.
Yeah, the big thing about it's PvE, so it's for people who don't like PvP, like David. This is good because you're fighting AI opponents and you're all working together.
I'm just not. I'm not good enough. I don't spend enough time in it. You know, that's one of those things. It's like any kind of skill. You have to do it a lot to get good at it.
It's very true. But so the beta is out for it this weekend. I played a couple matches last night at like 3 a.m, trying to get it in before the podcast today. It's really good. Like it's 8 players versus the environment.
Oh wow, 8.
Yep, and they just have one round right now until the game ends. So it's
That's
like
cool.
5 waves. Round ends, and then you kind of wrap up. And whoever wins, whoever gets the most points in the leaderboard. So you're still technically competing with your people.
Not
on your
really.
team.
You're just trying to survive as long as you can, right? That's
exactly.
How I play.
But yeah, there is a winner. But yeah, it's really good. They're tightening up the mechanics. They haven't said when it comes out yet, but they said this year.
It's got to be soon, right? I mean,
yeah,
Halo
they already
5
have a
is
public beta.
starting to kind of fall off. You know what I mean? Like that window of interest of the online community. I think you probably have like a year before.
Honestly, I think it's fallen off a long time ago. But they do new updates every month that adds a lot. They're adding infections. We can do Jaws.
Oh man, that was so much fun. I remember playing that in Halo 3.
Yeah, Halo 3.
So one person is like really fast and can move quickly. Yeah, and then the other people have shotguns and the other person dies from like a one shot.
Yeah.
So much fun. I just remember laughing so hard that my eyes would well up with tears.
Same here, man.
And I couldn't see the screen and I'd end up dying because it was so
I feel
much
like Dan
fun.
and Tyler and all the classics.
Yeah, such a good time.
So they're bringing that back in this next update.
Why? This is my problem. What is the deal? I mean, like, why? The game's been out over a year, right? Almost
I don't know.
a year.
I think it's a mix of what does the community want?
Yeah.
Like, why wasn't it in the game to begin with? Like, Forge wasn't in the game to begin with.
That makes sense, at least to a certain
It's not
extent.
just that, but you don't want to, put all your eggs in one basket right when the game comes out. You want to slowly keep people interested by doing this month to month. I understand, but a lot of people wanted it, and they're actually putting it in, so they're listening, which is good.
Yeah, that's good, I suppose.
But I can't wait for that to be back and we can play. What else? Oh, David.
Yes.
David. All right, the biggest answer to the question that everyone's been wanting.
Oh, no. What is the question?
Why does C-3PO have a red arm in Force Awakens?
We all want to know. By the way, I love that fact in the movie when he's like, I'm sure you want to know why I got this red arm, but we'll tell you some other time. It's not important.
Yeah, so speaking of another time, this is just a one-off issue. It's a comic that came out by Marvel that to explain how he got his red arm. It was supposed to come out the week that The Force Awakens came out. It was pushed back 2 or 3 more times. I don't know why. It's just a comic book. Who cares?
Yeah, but
it came out last week or 2 weeks ago.
So this is part of that Marvel cinematic. I mean, I guess it's comic book universe, but it actually is canon.
This
right?
is all canon. Yeah.
So this actually, and most of them take place before Empire and after A New Hope, right?
No, some of them do. Like the main Star Wars and the main Darth Vader comic lines do, but they have an Anakin and Obi-Wan.
They have an
comic
Anakin
line.
one.
Mm-hmm. Which it's more like them during the Clone Wars.
Did they? Oh, okay, that's cool. I thought they went like little kid with it. I was like, really, enough with the little kid.
Lenny. No, they did not.
I want his little friend on Tat or what was the
little Greedo friend?
Yeah, little Greedo friend. I want him to get his own comic book.
They have a bunch of different storylines now, but we finally get to know
why he got the red arm.
It is kind of dumb, but
hold on. Spoiler alert. Gerald's going to say because I haven't read it and I really don't care. So spoiler alert if you don't want to know how C-3PO gets his red arm. Go ahead and tell us.
All right. He goes on a mission. They end up capturing a First Order droid.
Okay.
And they captured him because I guess Admiral Akbar has been captured by the First Order, and so they go and capture this droid.
Wait, let me guess what. It was a trap.
They didn't even explain how. It's like, apparently this First Order droid that these other droids captured has information on where Admiral Akbar is held.
Right.
And it's kind of funny because at the beginning of the comic book, they're treating him like a prisoner, but they're like, aren't you guys just computers? Can't you just download his data into your brain and just kill him or something?
Oh, C-3PO?
Yeah. But anyway, so there's 5 different droids that after they crash land on this planet, there's like a construction droid, there's a couple security droids, and then there's C-3PO, who's a protocol droid, and then the guy they stole, which is another protocol droid. Anyway, throughout the comic, droids are dying because like monsters are happening, or like creatures are coming up and killing them, all this stuff, and C-3PO's we have to survive, blah blah blah. Anyway,
shuffles his way out of the way.
yeah, so throughout the comic, as these droids are dying, they're like, oh, this droid sacrificed himself for the greater good. And the bad droid is like, I don't understand that. That's stupid. They're just humans that program us. That's how we know. It's because we're programmed. C-3PO
right.
No, you can choose a side, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, throughout the end of
that's interesting. I like that mechanic of like robots, AI, like picking sides because they're like, oh, we're just programmed to be evil. And he's like, no, you're not. You can be a good guy.
Yeah, that's what C-3PO is saying. There's a couple times where C-3PO is like, I remember certain things. And it had like flashbacks of like the picture of Naboo and like all this other stuff that he's banned in the comics, which is kind of
because
cool.
they wiped his memory banks after the prequels.
Yeah.
And he has like, oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
So, all right. That's super cool. I like the idea of like, he has like glimpse of like previous like corrupt data. That's super cool. All right, cool.
So by the end of the comic, the First Order droid sacrifices himself to save C-3PO, gives him the data on Admiral Akbar, and it goes out into some acid rain to turn on this transponder. So
and he
it can, like,
melts.
And he melts, except his arm, because he's a red protocol droid.
Oh.
Except his arm, and then, because C-3PO's arm gets ripped out during the mission by some creature, whatever. Anyway, so by learning self-sacrifice,
It's an
like
homage
message,
to his, yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, and then like Poe Dameron and BB-8 land and save him, all that kind of stuff. But
That's cool.
yeah, it's kind of dumb, but it's cool. Like,
No,
I think it's like, why does the droid melt but not the arm?
It's made of extra strong titanium. I
guess
know.
so.
It's called a narrative, right?
Yeah, but it is a little thing that kind of teaches droids that they're not just computers that are just programmed to do whatever we want. They kind of have their own thoughts,
That's super cool. No, I like the idea of artificial intelligence and the idea that that's super cool. I like.
You say that now, Dan.
Yeah, I say that now, and then when they rise up and C-3PO's red arm is what's choking me out.
Yeah, so it was. I mean, it was cool. I don't know why it was delayed, but it doesn't really matter.
But you pick up you get all the comics, right? You've got all
of
the
them.
There. How many are there now? There's Poe has his own comic.
Poe just started. I wanted to read it before the show. I didn't get a chance. The first issue of Poe just came out.
But you would recommend all of them, or?
Yeah, they're all good. They all have their varying successes of like the storyline kind of sucks. The Leia one wasn't that great. The Chewie one wasn't that great. But they're all canon. So
I like
I'm
the
gonna read
Leia.
them all.
But my question is, are they obviously Disney's or Lucas is in charge of all of this? I guess they're running it all through them because they can't. If it's all canon, they got to be careful, right? I mean,
Well,
to a
yeah, I
certain
think
extent.
everything's ran through, Kathleen Kennedy and those kind of storyboard people to make
That's
sure everything
cool.
kind of fits. Kind of like the MCU.
That's very cool.
But anyway, David, what you been up to? What you doing?
I am playing board games. No surprise, but
Gasp.
a little bit different type of board game. Me and my wife Alyssa started doing Kickstarter preview videos, which has been a lot of fun.
You've seen a couple of them. They're very good, by the way.
Thank
good
you.
acting on both sides.
Yeah. Well, listen. I'm just amazing, I'm waiting for my Kickstarter award. Anyways, I wanted to talk about a couple of them because some people might not check out the videos, and I encourage you to go check those out if you want to learn more. I'm just going to go over kind of some of the games that we got a chance to play and tell you a little bit about them. So the first one that we played was one called that I love the name. It's called Pie Rats of the Caro Bean Farm.
Check this video out for one. Like, pause this, go to our videos and watch this one. It's short, but it's pretty fun.
And wait till the very, very, very end
There's
of
a
it.
little end credit tease that David put in there.
There's some real good stuff in there, but it's a card game. It's fun. It's fast. It's very cute. It has the artwork reminds me a lot of like Fievel Goes West and The American Tail. Remember like back in the day?
Yeah.
Speaking of comics that make you cry, that movie made me cry like a baby. But it's a lot of fun. It's a take that card game. The players are acting as rats to try to steal pies from the farmer's wife's windowsill. Why do we put pies on windowsills?
Cool.
Why the windowsill?
To get the fresh air. Cool.
It seems like a bad idea. It seems like if you want your pie to get stolen, stick it on the outside of your house. Why don't you just leave it in the kitchen countertop? It seems like this aerated. Anyways.
It's room temperature. It's cooler outside. I don't know.
The next one that we checked out was called Ilios. This is a really great abstract strategy game. So think of like Go, like the classic Go, or like even like checkers. Like the mechanics of it are very simple, and what you're doing is placing tiles down on a grid board to try to take over other people's tiles and then surround them. I used to play a game as a kid called Dots and Boxes. Do you remember this?
Yeah.
It's what poor kids played back in the day. You take a sheet of paper, you put a bunch of dots on
Pass
it.
between friends so the teacher doesn't grab it.
Exactly. And then you make a single line, and then if you finish a box, you put your letter, like if I'm team A or you're team B. And then I think I remember as a kid, if you finish a box, you get to do another line.
Yep.
So you can have like this, domino effect. This game has a lot of that simplicity of like trying to be the last person to finish off or surround a tile in this game is when you plunder it or that it gets scored. So you not only need to have ownership of that tile when you surround it. So it's like this thing where I'm like trying to push you into filling in the second to last area so I can finish the last one and take over. So it's
Gotcha.
excellent game. Again, check that one out. Another one that we had a chance to check out was called Turin Market. This is a auction set collection game. Very, very, very cool. It comes in this really unique small package so you can take it up with you on the go.
Or you can't read it.
Yeah, Gerald's blind, so he couldn't read the cards. But it's a fun game. I like games that are straightforward and simple. A lot of the time, we play a ton of games, and I enjoy obviously the heavy games, but it takes 45 minutes to get through the game rules. And these games, all of these games so far, they probably take me like 10 minutes to explain the game, and you pick it up after your first or second turn. You'd be like, I get it. But this has an auction mechanic where you actually you bid on cards in the center. Silent auction, so you put how much you're going to pay in your hand, and everyone reveals at the same time. What I do like, that usually is kind of a broken mechanic in some games because there's not really an encouragement to bid a lot. It doesn't encourage people to bid. Like someone will bid 100 and one will bid like $1, and it's like, this is broken. But what the game does is if you are in last place as a bidder, then you don't get anything out of the pool, and you lose half of your bid. So you actually encourages you to put more money in because you don't want
to be the lowest.
You do not. You get really, really. It's pretty brutal if you're the lowest. So check that out. It's got a really cool 18th century Italy theme to it. These little laser cut. The currency are called scudo. Scudo. That's what we yell every time. It's these laser cut on little wooden discs.
Oh, cool.
So it's very, very. The detail on this is. I couldn't be a board game designer because I would just not have the detail for it. But it's amazing. So check out all of those videos. That's what I've been doing all week, and we've got more games coming. So I'm super excited.
Of course you do, David.
Like I said, this is like the biggest scam I've ever pulled. Where people send me their game to check out. I'm like, really?
All you gotta do is just create a video saying
yeah,
what
I
it's
know.
about. Right?
Yeah, it's awesome. So I'm glad to help other people because I think Kickstarter is really cool. But those are the three that I checked out: Pirates of the Caribbean Farm, Ilios, and Turin Market. So check out those videos. I'll put links in the show notes and in the video description.
Perfect.
Okay, so let's move on to our topic for this week. If people are following us on Instagram and on Twitter and on Facebook, this week's episode is going to be about cartoons that we loved as kids. Now, this is what's strange about it. This is like Jordan's bread and butter.
And he's not here.
But I got some of his, what his top 5 are. We're going to go through our top 5. I'll save his for the very end, and then I've got some from the community that are pretty interesting.
Oh, cool.
So let's start. Number 5. Do you want me to go first, or you want to go first?
I want to go first,
All
David.
right. Number 5 on the top cartoons as a kid.
First up.
Yeah, let's talk about how we created the list.
So we created this. It has to be animated, so I couldn't do Power Rangers, even though Power Rangers would be like number 1 or 2. Freaking love me some Power Rangers. So it has to be animated. Obviously, it's a cartoon. Cartoons we enjoyed as a kid, so we didn't choose like South Park or Family Guy because those are all more adult-oriented cartoons.
Yeah, and
it's really close to The Simpsons, but it's just more. This is more like when you're a kid.
Yeah, like younger. Yeah.
Yes, that's how we do that.
For me, I went back and I watched a bunch of these cartoons, which I'll talk about in each one of them because there's a different opinion when I was a kid and now, and we'll talk about that. But these are the cartoons that I still enjoy watching now. I would watch them now, and I remember you talked about this. These were the cartoons that you would wake up early on Saturday morning to make sure you hit.
Like, how do you get a kid early up before school on a school day? You can't, right?
Yeah.
Pokemon can.
Pokemon. All right, but let's go. Let's start. Number 5. What is your number 5,
Well,
sir?
let me get some little background on my list. All right. Jordan would know if he would be here.
Yeah.
But growing up without cable is kind of hard.
Yep.
As a kid, you don't get a lot of these cool Rugrats, Rocko's Modern Life, all these cartoons
Nicktoons,
yeah.
You didn't have Nickelodeon.
No, I had like UPN, Fox, and ABC.
Yeah.
That's pretty much it. I don't think NBC really had cartoons.
They had more like science shows. Those are like, yeah. Anyways,
so that's my background. So when you're like, oh, why isn't X on your list? That's why. 'Cause I was broke. Anyways. Number 5. Well, before I get to number 5, a couple honorable mentions of just stuff that really, really good cartoons that I just couldn't throw in my top 5.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just going to list these out.
Okay.
Gargoyles. I think we mentioned previously on this show. Gargoyles is excellent.
That was
Love it.
That was later. That was a good show, but like I said, I kind of was freaked out about that show because it was like kind of dark.
Bobby's World.
Excellent show.
Excellent show.
Bubble.
Yeah, Howie was the voice of that, right? Oh, that's so weird.
And his mom would be always like, "Don't you know, from Minnesota? Yeah. Listen here, Bobby."
Batman the Animated Series, and I know people are like, how could that not be on your top five?
Yeah.
It's really hard. You'll see soon enough.
Yeah.
Or listen soon enough. Spider-Man, another really good one. This was almost my number 5, and then The Tick is another one where I honorable mention. Tick was excellent.
Spoon.
So funny.
They need to bring that back. They are bringing it back?
They're gonna take another stab at the whole live action Tick. So we'll see.
It was great. Did you ever watch the live?
I watched the Fox one. It was excellent.
It was so bad. Like, I mean, like good bad. You know what I mean?
That was the whole point, though.
Oh, it was like, how did this get past like executives? Like, it was some of it was pretty brutal. But okay,
All right,
so now
number 5.
number 5.
Drum roll, please. Okay, X-Men.
Ba-na-na-na-na-na.
Exactly. Everyone knows the intro to this TV show. It's excellent. Again,
No pun intended.
good one, David. As I mentioned before, I wasn't really into comic books and stuff because we were too broke to really afford them. So this was my foray into comic book heroes and all that kind of stuff. Obviously with Spider-Man I watched as well and Batman the Animated Series, but I liked X-Men way more than any of those. Characters were excellent. You got all the weird ones and stuff too. It's just so good.
Yeah, I think this show introduced X-Men comics probably to more people than the comic books themselves. Yeah. I mean, I know kids that literally just knew X-Men from these comics, and you can see that because a lot of, like, for instance, Apocalypse, they're going after that 80s, 90s look, and you have Jubilee with the yellow jacket and the big, pink sunglasses. Like, it's feeding into that. But also the one thing about that show, versus other kind of adaptations of comic books, is it looked like the comic books. The artwork and the art style and the movement felt, and the scenery, and even the storylines. Like, they didn't pick, like they did Days of Future Past, they did like the Apocalypse, like
a lot of the weird stuff they did right off the bat.
Yeah, which is really cool. And I remember in like one of the very first episodes, one of the main characters, Morph, he like dies. So like they like it was
about Morph, yeah.
Remember that? Yeah. You left me. And then he ends up being like Mr. Sinister's like minion. Again, I'll talk about this in some other mind. I enjoyed cartoons that actually had narratives that went across like a season. You know, you had like part 1, part 2, part 3. And it's interesting how that particular cartoon shapes probably what people think of as X-Men more than anything. They did the Dark Phoenix saga, which again, the movie's
so
all
good.
Yeah, so good.
And it did better than the movie.
Yeah, probably. Well, they didn't kill off everybody and then say, well, time travel, we'll fix all that.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Anything else for that?
No, just really good. Check it out. Like I said, the intro's in everyone's head right now anyway. Yeah. Anyway, it's excellent. David, what is your number 5?
My number 5 is Ren and Stimpy. Oh, again, Nicktoons, so you probably
I'm like, great.
But no, the reason I love this show was a couple things. When I remember watching it as a kid, I was like, there's always those cartoons that you watch, like Beavis and Butthead's a good example. Like there's a little part in your brain that's like, I'm not supposed to be watching this. Like this
I don't think it's a kid's cartoon at all.
Well, the thing I would say about Ren and Stimpy, the reason I love that show is because it was just silly. Like so many.
It's weird to be weird. No, like reason to be weird, but just like you said, silly, and that's why kids like it. But when you're adult watching it, you're like, ugh. But there's so many like odd things that are happening right now.
Yeah,
kids don't really pick up on that. So
exactly, I think
more for both audiences.
This cartoon was Adult Swim before Adult Swim was around. Like this is the cartoon that made that because it ended up I think running on MTV for a period of time.
Yeah, I think so.
But I used to love as a kid. Maybe I was a weird kid. I know I was a weird kid. But they would do like the regular animation, the 2D animation, and then they would like cut into a close up, and it would be like that
zoom in like
artwork,
painted almost like SpongeBob does that.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like I like that people still do that. But it was a great show because it didn't shove like, every cartoon that we'll go through here always try to teach kids like morals, like don't share with your friends or do this or don't do that. This show was just like,
we're weird.
It's just super weird, happy, joy. And now I went back and I watched a few episodes. There is so much sexual innuendo in this cartoon.
I've seen a couple of things.
There is, they take stabs at so many other cartoons that were popular before and at the same time as them. Like, for instance, everyone, when you're a kid, all you ever want is the toys that are associated with these cartoon shows. Like, they were making fun of it when they came out with that whole log. Like, it's log. It fits on your back. It's great for a snack. Like, they're making fun of, like, we can sell kids anything. And I haven't heard.
So it's kind of like meta, right?
Yeah, it's making fun of the whole cartoon idea. But it's just, again, I love the show because it was just so silly. I really did appreciate that part of it. So if you haven't checked it out, go watch Ren and Stimpy. At least watch like the first 2 episodes and just be like, what the like?
What do we subject our
Like
children to back then?
Ren just goes insane in a couple of these. Like literally loses his mind. Like just insane. Like bites soap and it's crazy, but it's so much fun. I don't know. They talked about. I was watching like a documentary type thing about it, and the creator said he never wanted any of his animators to draw the same expression ever. Because the idea was like, you have characters that are happy. Well, happy is, you could have 1,000 different ways of being happy. Joy. All right, that's my number 5.
How long was that show on?
Well, it ran on Nickelodeon for a period of time with like Nicktoons, like Doug and Rugrats and stuff like that, and then it got picked up by MTV. And I don't know if it ran more episodes, but it was only around for. I know the original writer was only on for maybe a couple seasons, and they got rid of him because they were like, "This is too weird." It was really popular though, and then I think it was on for maybe another 2 more years. So it was only like four seasons. I know the DVD box set is probably like 2 DVDs.
Oh, gotcha,
it's not like an anthology of stuff.
Yeah.
All right, so that's my number 5. Do you want? Let's get to number 4. Do you want me to do it, or you want to go first again?
Let's go back and forth.
Okay, go for it.
My number 4 is Batman Beyond.
I don't know. Go ahead. Tell me why.
All right, so I like this show a lot. One, because it was like futuristic, and I was like a huge sci-fi, well, just a huge nerd in general back then. So I definitely like that setting more than Batman the Animated Series. And I like that you had the Batman Animated Series stuff, like Bruce Wayne was still there. Mm-hmm. Was it the same animators? Because it looked almost exactly the same.
Yeah, I believe it was. Yeah, it's WB Animation Studio, but it had the same look. I mean, they had like, it's that sharp lines and, the eyes coming out of the darkness, like, yeah, it had a Batman Animated Series feel. I like how it wasn't just a rich billionaire guy. It was just, a kid. Funded by a rich billionaire guy.
Funded by the rich billionaire guy. But yeah, I love that show. That show is excellent. I think it was like the only thing on UPN or
See,
WB,
I didn't watch enough of that. I know there's a huge love for it. It's weird that the only really exposure that I've had to, I picked it up here and there when I was a kid, but I watched a animated movie called Batman Beyond Return of Joker, which is, again, all their animated movies are fantastic. And it was really good. It did a good job of kind of introducing the character. And he reminded me a lot of not Peter Parker. He was more like popular in school. He wasn't like the nerdy kid.
Yeah.
I think his name's McGinnis or Terry McGinnis.
Something like that. I don't recall.
But I wasn't a big fan of I was like, Batman's Batman. What are you doing? Get out of the soup, bro. What are we talking about? It's copyright infringement.
I just like the futuristic aesthetic. Red was my favorite. Is my favorite color, so I like that too. And it just again, it was continuing that story that everyone knows, all the old Batman stuff, but it's more just like a new.
I'm surprised they haven't really dug down into that. Even in
do more stuff with that character.
Yeah, do more stuff, or even do like a video game. Like the Batman Arkham Knight games, or the Arkham City and Arkham Asylum games. They should. I know they have skins where he looks like Batman Beyond, but they should do a Batman Beyond. I don't see why you couldn't take mechanics of like the great Spider-Man video games where you have swinging around because he has the jet rockets, right? So he can
little boots, yeah.
Yeah, so I don't know why. It seems weird that they haven't really explored.
Well, it's more of a timeline thing too. It's like everyone knows that character is how many years in the future, where Batman is super old. If they did a new one, that would be cool.
That'd be cool. You have you have to go save Batman.
Yeah.
Go get him with some Mucilex or something.
Home, yeah. Anyway, David, what's your number 4?
My number 4 is Thundercats. Oh! Okay, I loved. If we were going to talk about the cartoon that I owned all of the toys and would scream this out at the top of my lungs at Toys R Us was Thundercats.
Really?
Loved Thundercats. Lion-O, Chitara. It was a great Snarf. Snarf. Nobody likes Snarf. I like Snarf. But it was a great show. I recently got all of the seasons on DVD and I started watching them. That show does not hold up. Oh. It's really, really bad. And I might be offending some people, but the animation's okay. It's all right. The bad guys it's
who's the bad guy in it? The main
God, now you're gonna put me on it. Skeletor? No. Yeah.
That's He-Man, Masters of the Universe.
Oh God, what's his name? Mumbra.
Okay.
Mumbra. Anyways, he's so it's an excellent kids show, but going back and watching, and this is what's interesting about a lot of these where it's like superheroes and stuff like that. There's no I guess it's just we've grown up with more violence in cartoons. They're not they have these giant swords and then they hit them with the back of the sword. Or
well, I heard something about that was a thing in He-Man too, where they don't really use the weapons because you can't show that on.
Yeah,
TV.
You can't cut off someone's limbs in a cartoon, right? But I do remember as a kid, and we'll talk about this in another one later. They had a traveling live show. People dressed up in the Thundercats, and I remember as a kid,
Thundercats on Ice or something.
Yeah, kind of like that, on the On Ice shows. And I remember as a kid, seeing it in some magazine, one of those kids magazines, like a Nickelodeon magazine or something. Tell your mom to order you. I used to love those cartoons, by the way. Just blatantly making kids
First
scream.
version required.
Yeah, exactly. But I remember seeing a photo and I was like, they're real. Like, you know, when you're a kid, you're like,
Yeah.
that's Lino. Mom, we have to go to this traveling. She's like, it's like 4 or 5 hours away. I don't care. But yeah,
you go?
Thundercats. No, we didn't end up going.
man.
But yeah, I went back and I saw the photo. I looked online. I'll post a photo here in the video. Don't worry. It's amazing. Now they talked to, they had a reboot of this show in about, I think it was like 2011, I think is when it came
Really?
out.
Oh.
Yeah. And it kind of looked like, anime. And not like strictly anime, but it had that feel to it. But it looked great. I just think, we talk about this, like that time period is not, it's hard. I don't know if it's the right time for a Thundercats like live action reboot. Now, I know they've been talking about making like a CGI or animated movie. I would love it. They talked about, I know James McAvoy's like a huge Thundercats guy, Professor X, speaking of X-Men.
Yeah.
And he's like, we should do it. We should, like, I'll help be the producer, but one condition, Snarf cannot be in it.
Seriously?
Yeah.
He's like Jar Jar Binks of that universe. Like no one.
Well, he's like the comic relief, but he's kind of like, nobody likes Snarf.
Well, he's got to change his character a little bit, where he's just not self-hating all the time.
Yeah. Oh, another thing I read about Thundercats is apparently people started naming their daughters Shitara.
Mm-hmm.
In 1984, when the show came out, right before nobody was named under the U.S. like Social Security Administration. By 1987, 29 kids were named Shitara.
I can't wait to see those kind of numbers where it's like how many parents name their daughter Cortana or that kind of stuff. You
Yeah.
know, our generation kind of stuff.
Should be interesting. All right, so that's my number 4. All right. Your number 3. Let's do number 3.
My number 3 is Hop Up the Magic School Bus.
We were watching this. You had me watch this earlier.
Yeah, the intro and stuff. The Magic School Bus is excellent, and I think Netflix is bringing it back.
They
I
should.
wanna say.
It's such an
They,
easy
are
idea.
funding it. Yeah,
They should.
and it's great for kids. It's learning. All the characters are so different, and they all like meld well together. Unlike that sentence. Carlos is my favorite with
Oh,
his
man,
puns and his bad jokes. Carlos.
Yeah, they would do that, right?
Yeah, exactly. But
I can't remember. I can't believe you remember all that.
yeah,
I love how these are like wedged into your brain. Like there's a space in your brain that only is exclusively for Magic School Bus.
But it's so good and it's so smart, and like we were watching like where they go inside Ralphie's body when he's sick, and they
Yeah.
cover all these things. It's so educational, and you may have to update it for this decade, but yeah, it's really good.
Yeah, they would
Obviously,
teach you.
everyone would know what this is, right? I mean,
Yeah,
I
I mean,
have to say go check it out. You know,
Right, but the Magic School Bus. So you have a teacher who had a Magic School Bus, and
Miss
she would
Frizzle, was that her name?
yeah, with the little what was like the Triceratops looking lizard. Did he have a Triceratops? He was
it
a
was
lizard.
an iguana.
Yeah, and he would like save the day at the last second. There was always that character that would end up saving everybody.
Yeah.
Like they're traveling into their doom, and he would like, anyways. But I enjoyed it because they would like tackle like kind of like red blood cells and white blood cells, and then they would tackle like they did one with God, what were some of the other episodes?
They've done like dinosaur ones. They've done like nature ones. I mean, just think of it. They've probably done it.
Yeah, it was so cool, such a good show, and I remember watching that in school. Like they would, you remember when they wheel out
It's
the
a rainy day. Roll out the TV with
Yeah.
the strap on it.
yeah,
Get the AV guy.
like that TV's gonna move. It weighed like
Yeah.
800 pounds. Like go ahead and try to lift that bad boy off there, and the tracking at the beginning, always
Exactly.
great.
But yeah, definitely check it out. I'm really curious to see what Netflix does. I'm pretty sure. I mean, don't
I
quote
wonder.
me, but-
I thought it was on PBS for a long time, so I
It
wonder.
was, yeah.
Okay, so I wonder how they're
but
working that out.
I think Netflix bought the rights to it and they're recreating the show.
Yeah, they're doing a lot of that. I talked to Peabody and Sherman. They have a Netflix show, which is excellent, and so they could do a lot with this, even if they went with like a different animation style. It
Definitely. Yeah.
there's so many good kid cartoons on Netflix. But go ahead.
David, what's your number 3?
My number 3 is, we talked about this in your honorable mentions, the Spider-Man cartoon on Fox. Fantastic. I used to run home from school, literally like a run. Because I think I got out of school at like 2, and it started at
Sprint for
2:30,
Spider-Man.
and I would literally just sprint. People would be like, "Hey, David, what are you doing this? Get out of the way! I gotta go watch
I
Spider-Man."
remember being pissed missing the first 5 or 10 minutes of Power Rangers Galaxy when it was out because like you couldn't make it home in time. Come on, Buzz, let's go.
Yeah, this is similar to like the X-Men show on Fox. This is what I consider like Spider-Man. This is the Spider-Man, like the voice, the character interactions, the mythos of Spider-Man. They got a little off the rails because I think they started to run out of like storylines to
Ideas.
do. Yeah, and this was another one where they had like running storylines. I believe they did the Maximum Carnage series. They introduced a lot of side characters like Morbius, like, you know, a lot of like Firestar, like characters, Cloak and Dagger. Like there was a lot of characters that they introduced in the show that obviously were in the Marvel universe, but unless you were like a heavy Marvel kid.
Well, same thing as the X-Men one, yeah.
Right. So I enjoyed that part of it. And again, it was just such a thrill to watch. This is the thing that frustrates me with Spider-Man. Now everything I've heard from the Civil War movie is like, this is the best Spider-Man ever, which
yeah, I've heard that too.
I cannot wait. Like, I hope that someone went, like, why don't we just make the one from the 90s cartoon show?
He was a very cool Peter Parker, like kind of a dick, right?
Well, he wasn't like,
smartass.
well, Andrew Garfield, I always talk about this. Andrew Garfield was a great Spider-Man. He was snarky and fun
Yeah.
and was energetic.
Which is how he was in the cartoon, right?
Yeah, he was
That's what I
like,
thought.
and he would be quirky. And he was a terrible Peter Parker because he's way too good looking. He's not a nerd. Like, whereas Tobey Maguire was a fantastic Peter Parker, but not as a great, he was more corny Spider-Man. Yeah, well, the whole emo thing was so weird. But just generally, I hope that they find a good balance. And that's what the show did. Like, he was dorky when he had to, because he wore like, I remember he had like the same, I love cartoons because they always have the same clothes. Like every single episode, same pair of pants, same clothes. So Peter Parker's outfit was always like this white colored with like a blue band and a green band, or maybe it was just all green. I don't remember, but I just remember him being dorky, and the way they would do like his spider sense, like his face,
animation.
Well, it wouldn't just be that. The background would be like a different, like it would have like a CGI look.
Like inverted colors.
Yeah, inverted colors. It was just excellent. They had such a good show. So Spider-Man, the animated series, is my number 3. Definitely go check that out. They need to, they have a lot of good ones now, like, what is it called? Ultimate Spider-Man. And they came out with there was one that came out and it was fantastic. It only had like a season. I can't remember what it was called, but it was great. They keep trying to do it. And they keep doing different animation. They just need to go back to this. Just make this.
Well, once Marvel Spider-Man comes out and everyone realizes how good it is, they'll probably do something else with it.
Yeah, I just can't imagine. How do you mess up Spider-Man? That's my thing. Like, just put him on a screen.
Could you put too many villains in one movie?
Yeah, I know. All right, so let's move on to number 2.
My number 2.
Number 2 of top cartoon as a kid. Go ahead.
Love this show. It spawned other shows as well, but it's the Animaniacs. Yeah.
We have paid for paid contracts.
So good. This show actually recently popped up on Netflix as well, and Sarah and I watched the first few episodes. That show, 1, holds up. 2, has a lot of jokes that's very meta.
Yeah.
Makes
you
a lot
wouldn't
of...
get as a kid.
Yeah, yeah, you definitely didn't get as a kid. It's another one of, like, I think it was just more silly, but a lot of the jokes were for the adults watching with their kids.
They really were.
Yeah.
Like, really, really were. Like, there's some, like, Bill Clinton jokes that are, like, kind of like sexual innuendo jokes, where it's like, as a kid, there's no way that went over your head.
Exactly. And that they, on the second episode, they brought out Spielberg, like, doing an E.T. joke, or maybe you would have gotten it, but I don't think you would know who Spielberg is as a kid.
Maybe.
But not really.
Yeah.
But yeah, so there's a lot of those good adult jokes. It's still really funny. Like, really funny.
Yeah.
Pinky and the Brain are, like, my favorites. That's still good.
They got their own show, too.
I remember liking the show. I think it was too long. Like,
Yeah, like
Pinky and the Brain are good as the little segments.
Mm-hmm.
So that's really, it was funny. Like, he did like a game show to try to win enough money to get some part to take over the world, obviously. But he was in like he was in like a robot, but a tiny mouse head still. So it's like, why is your head so small? I was like, don't worry about that. It's like so stupid.
That's just so great. Again,
And the guy kept calling him Brian. It's like, it's Brain. But yeah.
Yeah, I also loved off of that show. That's another spin-off of that show was Freakazoid. Did you ever watch Freak of Me, Freak of You? Runs around in his underwear. But yeah, and they even made up a whole internet meme called Candlejack, if we say his name. And they, like, it was such a excellent show because they had all of this. They made fun of Looney Tunes. You know what I mean? Like, they were called the Warner Brothers and their sister Dot. Like, those are such classic jokes. Like, they're funny no matter what time period you are, but the show's production value was also off the charts. Like, they did the songs where they would name all of the capitals and the yeah, it's like that's not easy to do unless someone pre-wrote it. But just they brought on like Rosie O'Donnell. Like, they made fun of everybody on that show. Everybody who was in pop culture. So it's a great show because I'm sure my parents probably maybe enjoyed it while I was watching it as a kid. But I just remember all singing and like the paid contracts. Like, I probably didn't get that joke as a kid, but now I watch it, I'm like, that's hilarious. Like, there's so many good shows.
The wheel of morality at the end of every episode.
Yeah, the wheel of... Yeah, fantastic.
Wheel of moralities, turn. Tell us a lesson that we shall learn.
That's my point. Like, they're making fun of all the other cartoons that are like, you have to teach kids something. It's like, okay, we have this obligatory thing where we have to teach you a lesson, and then we'll get back to it.
A wheel handle it,
Yeah, exactly. So, I hope they do something. Again, all these cartoons, like, Put them back out. Like, make another new Animaniacs.
And now they're on Netflix. Definitely check it out. It still holds up. Watch it with your kids.
How many seasons?
I think it's 3. I want to say it was 3.
See, that seems like so short. But they spun off, like, again, a bunch of their shows.
Yeah, and you
got
to think each season on normal television is like 20 something episodes.
Yeah.
So, anyway, what is your number 2, David?
My number 2 is Inspector Gadget.
Oh, I forgot about Inspector Gadget. That's a good show.
Okay, movies aside. Sorry, what's his name? The guy who played
Matthew Broderick.
Yeah, I like him, but
That was a good movie. It wasn't bad.
no, it wasn't a good movie. The cartoon was probably, again, it's one of my favorites, but I again, this is another cartoon that I would race home to watch. It's interesting.
Sorry, what channel was it on?
Nickelodeon, I think.
Okay, I remember watching it, but maybe I missed.
I think it was on a number of networks, but I think Nickelodeon picked it up for one of the rerun. You know, they always did that back in the day. I love this show for a couple different reasons. One, again, all the toys. I had all the toys as a kid. But I loved his suit. The suit was like, I had a jacket. I made my mom go
Big
buy me a
trench coat.
giant gray trench coat, and I sewed buttons on it, I think. Like, there was no buttons on it, but I sewed these, and he pulls the button and it gets all big, and like, I remember doing, and the helicopter comes out of the hat, and then like the flashlight finger, and it was just, like, it combined, detective, like, Pink Panther, like that, with like Iron Man. Like, it was like the coolest thing ever. Like, he had all these awesome gadgets.
And to me, I watched Get Smart as a kid too, and I think he took that from that, like his voice and stuff, right? Is like right out of Get Smart.
Yeah, missed it by that much. Yeah, he's got that kind of voice. I also liked it's funny going back and watching this show because they have a new Netflix show, a brand new show that came out a couple of years ago. It's really good. I watched it. It feels just like this. There was a couple things that I loved as a kid that stick in my brain. He would always read his assignment. And remember in Mission Impossible, this will self-destruct in 5 seconds. Mm-hmm. The person who would give it to him, his boss, he'd always throw it back at him and then he'd explode. It's still funny. And then he had the 2 companions, Penny, who was his like daughter, or I think it was his niece, if I remember correctly.
The dog, right?
And then the dog was Brain, which is interesting with Pinky and the Brain. But so she had a watch, which is like the Apple Watch. They had like FaceTime on it and everything. It's just cool to watch that. And I used to love his car that turned into like to a van, into like a police car, and then I think it turned into a boat too. On some episode,
the plot required it.
Yeah, but I remember having the thing as a kid where you could like take the top off and okay. So and then moving on to the last part that I loved about this, Dr. Claw. Remember, you would never see him; you just see the claw and the cat, and he'd be like, "Talk like this." It was a really creepy voice that he had, but he was always trying to, outsmart, and it was like Mr. Magoo. He would end up, Penny and Brain would end up solving it, and he'd be like, "Oh," they'd be like, "Thank you, Inspector." He's like, "Oh yeah, you're welcome." But they never showed his face, and so I remember they came out with a toy when I was a kid. They came out with a Dr. Claw toy, which was like, holy crap! Like you could see his face, and I remember going to the store and they put a sticker over the plastic covering where his face was, so you had to buy the toy in order. I remember that as a kid, like opening it up real slowly, like, what does he look like? And it was just some guy with like a white hair and a weird looking face.
Old guy.
Yeah, it was an old guy, and I was like, what?
That is kind of funny though that they did that.
Yeah, it was like the whole thing on. What was it?
It's like an inside joke.
Yeah, exactly. Very meta. So, but yeah, check out the new Netflix show. I don't, like I said, I didn't really enjoy the movies. I don't know why. They weren't, and they made a second one where like it was like an evil inspector. It was bad. Yeah. Very, very bad. But go watch the old show and watch the new Netflix show. It's pretty good. All right, so that's my number 2.
Number 1.
The number 1 cartoon of all time. You want to go first? Number 1 cartoon as a kid of all time. Drum roll.
Gotta catch 'em all.
I already knew it.
I know you did. Pokemon. Oh my god, I love this show so much.
Okay, first of all, we were watching the intro before we started this show, and literally what he's doing during the intro is he's naming all the Pokemon, like just naming them off, like
Dragonite, Rapidash. Like I know at least the 151. Anything past that, like 2nd gen, I know most of them.
Yeah.
Anything past that, I didn't have time for that. Now there's like, I think there's 7th gen now. There's like hundreds of them.
Gotta catch them all.
No. But yeah, I knew all 151 right off the bat.
Yep.
Obviously played the crap out of the games. Up until I think beginning of 3rd generation, I don't ever think I finished that game.
Is it still
I
going?
went to the theater to see Pokemon 2000 when it came out.
Oh, God.
Pokemon the movie or 2000? I don't know, but there's a part where like Ash gets turned to stone. And I was like, oh no.
That's animated though, just like the TV show. It's just an extended TV show.
And you got an exclusive Mew card.
Oh god. So
you played the trading card game?
played the card game. You played the games on like Game Boy and all that stuff. Mm-hmm. You watched the TV show.
Saw the movies.
So you were like the Pokemon.
Yeah, I was the Pokemon. But yeah, this show's just so good on so many levels.
But I think I've asked you this. Did it start off as a game and then become a TV show, or was it vice versa? Or
I don't know. I think it started as a TV show first.
And then
I don't know. We got to kind of go back in the archives and take a look at Wikipedia or something. But I think it was the show first in Japan, and then maybe came out.
And then I think Nintendo bought a
So it was
controlling
Pocket
interest.
Monsters was what it was called.
Oh, that's
Pokemon.
where it's. I didn't know that.
Oh, really?
I did not know it was called Pocket
That was what
Monsters.
the game was called back in the day.
Oh,
in
and
Japan.
then Pokemon.
When Red and Green came out, no blue. Or was it blue and green? I want to say it was red and green.
Oh man, I'm gonna check you on your
Check my facts.
on your Pokemon. Now, this show, did they have like running? Because again, I watched this in passing. You would wake up at 6 a.m. to watch it, which makes me mad. Like kids with TiVo and like DVRs, they don't have
That
to
was so
do any
good
of that
these
crap
days, man.
anymore. But
Torrents and stuff.
did the show have like running storylines, or was it just one-offs every episode?
No, the whole show was a storyline because it's him trying to
Catch them all.
be the best that no one ever was.
You got to be
It's him
the
just
best.
getting all of his gym badges, learning how to become a
No
Pokemon
one
trainer.
ever was.
And then she
It's
gets to
so
the point-
intense. That song is just like, it's like a montage song, you know? It's like,
Well, like Dave was saying before this episode, I was watching a YouTube video of all the different intros they've done over past, like, I think it's like 15 or 18 seasons
yeah.
now.
Well, it's 20 years, right? You said recently, right? 20 years
Yeah,
of Pokemon?
but I think I got to like the third intro that I knew all the words to. Before I didn't, I was like, "What the heck is this?" But
awesome.
so good. But yeah, the whole storyline was an overarching theme of him getting enough gym badges and obviously collecting Pokemon to the point where he can defeat the Elite Four and all that kind of stuff. Be the Pokemon master.
What did they teach in that show? Was there like lessons? Because I knew Team Rocket was like the jerks that would always try to like thwart his
Yeah,
efforts.
Team Rocket's blasting off again. But yeah, so every episode they had their own little lesson,
Okay.
a little moral of the story. Each
And did
time,
they
but
teach-
the overarching thing?
Okay, so how do you get let's just get into some deep, how do you get your characters to mutate, or what are they called?
Evolve, David.
Sorry, mutate, okay.
They reach a certain level
By fighting, so they gain
by
experience.
battling. Yes.
Sorry, gotta get the key terms right. Battling, so they would then evolve into, and then like, would they be a different person, or would they have like different? Because I know Charizard was like a jerk. Right?
Well, see, that was the kind of thing. So he quickly evolved Charmander into Charmeleon and then Charizard.
Yeah.
But he didn't enough in the game. You had to have enough the proper gym badge to have the right level at that point.
Okay.
But in the show, it was like he didn't listen to him. He'd be like, Charizard, do this. Instead, he would like flame his own face or whatever.
But so how
he
did
didn't listen to him because he didn't have the experience necessary to.
to teach him? He didn't train him
Exactly.
correctly. Okay, so my question about this is, because again, we talk about violence in these old cartoons. How did they deal with like the two fighting? Like Charizard would catch them on fire and they would just turn gray, like or black with the little
And
white eyes. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, and it was all anime, so you had like the big teardrop.
Would they do like they'd throw it and it'd show like the lines moving and the ball static, like in anime, you know? Back in
Yeah.
the- Okay.
But yeah,
I gotta go back and watch these because I think I would enjoy it. Have you gone back and watched any? I'm sure you have.
Other than the intro and stuff, but the actual television show, no, I have not.
I would be interested to go back and watch it because again, watching some of these as an adult, you're just like, man, I had bad taste, or like, what was I watching? Just so weird.
I had the soundtrack to the Pokemon movie, by the way, on CD. I listen to that all the time. There's a song where, like, Ash, like I said, Ash is like, brother, my brother. What are you fighting for? We've got to end this war. I remember all that, man.
so awesome.
Freaking
I
love
could see you
Pokemon,
as like
man.
a driving in your car as a young high school kid bumping this in your
Oh,
car.
no.
Your Jeep Cherokee. No, you turn it down when you get close enough to school.
Of course, yeah. But yeah, I there's been a couple times now. I used to have a 3DS XL, and I was so close to buying the games. But I'm like, I don't have time to play these games anymore. Like,
Yeah, they're a time sink for sure.
the time sink, and I have other stuff that I'd rather be doing. Unfortunately, so I'm not really in it anymore. I'm too old to keep track of 700 or whatever Pokemon there are in the world. But
and they can only say their name. That's the way they talk, right?
except Meowth, who could talk. That was Team
Oh,
Rocket's
that's true.
guy.
Yeah, meow.
He always had like a smart ass attitude. I like
Yeah,
Meowth,
exactly.
yeah.
But they would like express something in their voice. They'd be like,
Yeah, Pikachu, Pika. Like, yeah.
and apparently Ash spoke all of their languages, right? 'Cause
Apparently,
he
yeah,
would know
'cause
what
he
they're
can
saying.
communicate with them. and
Okay,
stuff, yeah.
interesting. Did they ever introduce any? I know there was two other characters. There was a girl and an older guy.
It was Misty and Brock.
See, here we go. But they had other. Did they ever introduce other Pokemon trainers that he would battle?
His
against?
rival was Gary.
His name's Gary. What a lame
His rival.
name. It's my rival, Gary.
It's Professor Oak's, I want to say grandson.
Professor Oak. Okay.
Anyways, go check it out, Pokemon. David, what's your... oh, by the way, Pokemon is still on.
It's still
on.
an active show. That's
Yeah,
still
because
like
they have new
episodes?
games. So you gotta have new...
Is it still
television
Ash?
show.
Does it still
Yeah,
look the same?
It's still Ash.
Does it
He
look the
still
same?
looks the same. He's got like a different hat every single time he goes to a different country or whatever, Providence, whatever you want to call it.
Oh,
he always
man.
has a different hat.
That's impressive though that they've been able to keep the audience. I mean, it's like a Disney
Still
thing.
really popular. They're gonna have Pokemon Go coming out, which that'll be the next Pokemon game I play.
Yeah,
Pokemon
on
Go.
your phone, right?
Yep.
Good.
Anyways, what is your number one, David?
Speaking of knowing the intros, my number one cartoon of all time as a kid is Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
man.
Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Sad I missed the boat on all these freaking like.
I love this so much. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles was like DNA. It is like if I was gonna get a tattoo, it'd probably be a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles tattoo. I love this cartoon. Everyone had their favorite turtle. Mine was Michelangelo because he was cool. Raphael was a jerk. Leonardo was like the Cyclops, the leader, and he was like, and Donatello was a nerd, so you couldn't like him.
Which one was like the dummy guy that just wanted to eat pizza all the time?
Michelangelo?
Okay.
Cowabunga, bro. That's why he was like the Bart Simpson of the show.
Yeah.
But I absolutely love this cartoon. I loved all the bad guys. I'm excited for obviously the new movies.
Did you like the reboot, the first one?
Yeah. Here's the thing. It's Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Like it's going to be a kid movie. And I think that's the Avengers movies, the other Marvel movies, and that kind of that nostalgia of like your cartoon characters and comic book characters. They are balancing between making it family friendly and they're not as kiddie. Like Civil War is not going to be a kids movie. I mean, it'll be a kids movie because it has. So like Ninja Turtles, it felt like a kids movie, but there's one scene in that movie that was like, this is what they need to capture the essence of this scene, and a lot of people don't like the scene. I loved it.
In the first movie, they're
going up an elevator to go fight Shredder at the top of this building, and they're waiting in the elevator. It's real quiet.
Climactic third act.
Yeah, and they're sitting in the elevator, and then I don't know who it is, but one of them starts kind of drumming on the other one's shell, and then they start doing like a beatbox thing, and it's just this like 45-second thing of them like it's hilarious. Like they all kind of come in slow. It's great, but I enjoy the old movies too. The Secret of the Ooze, the rubber suits, the Go Ninja, Go Ninja, Go. Do you remember those?
Yeah, I remember there being I didn't watch the cartoon because again, I didn't have access to it. But I do remember the movies. I do remember, wasn't there like a live show that was like abysmal?
No, it was great. I remember as a kid, they had the rubber suits again. And I had all of the action figures from this. I remember back in the day, here's a little tip that my mom used to do. She's going to be mad that I said this. She would buy she's going to be so mad I say this. She would buy the action figure at Target, which was like, I don't know, let's say $30 for whatever action figure. Back in the day, I would, let's say $20. And then it was like $35 at Toys R Us. So she would buy it at Target, return it at Toys R Us, get Jeffrey bucks, and then get more.
Jeffrey bucks. That is so shady.
Yeah. Well, that's how my mom got. We weren't rich either, man.
Yeah, that's true.
Worked the system. She's going to be so mad. Anyways, I had the April O'Neil News 4 van that shot out the discs of the.
Yeah, I know they're adding that in the next movie. A lot of people were excited.
Oh
right?
my gosh! Yeah. And that's the thing. The trailer at least looks like they're embracing like the weirdness.
Rocksteady and Bebop.
Like it was a weird show. Just be Bebop and Rocksteady. Like they do look kind of weird. They look strange, like the CGI of it. But
they kept the mohawk and all. That
yeah,
stuff,
no,
right?
but I'm saying like the characters themselves. But I like it. I embrace the weirdness of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I recently went back and started reading some of their comic books that they have out now. Mm-hmm. They're dark. Like they're and it's like not. I was like, wow. Like, and they've rebooted the cartoon a few times on Nickelodeon, and they've gotten better with it. But again, it's like you can't show like slashing limbs off with their. The nunchucks are cool, but everything else, the bow is probably okay. But the giant sword and the size, like everyone had their own weapon. It was like this awesome, like Lord of the Rings. There's like the archer, and everyone had their own character.
Someone had a bow.
No, giant staff. Okay. Not a bow. A bow staff. Sorry, that was Donatello. But yeah, speaking of the live tour, I remember as a kid watching this. They were on Oprah. They had the guys in the rubber suit and a bunch of kids in the audience, and they would Oprah would be like, "Oh, do you like pizza?" And he's like, "Yeah, totally radical, bro. I love pizza." And the kids lost their mind, and I was one of the kids on the other side of the screen losing his mind because I was like, "Oh my gosh,
they're real.
They're real." But I never got to go to the concert tour, but I always wanted to. But they had rock and roll. Like it was like the coolest thing because like when you're a kid, my parents always were like, "Here, listen to the Beatles," and now I'm like. That I should have, but as a kid, you're like, I don't want to like anything my parents like. But I remember listening to that, and I was like, this is cool music. Ninja Turtles, rock and roll hour. But yeah, check out Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Be excited for these movies. I don't know. I'm hoping this next one.
It's not going to be 99% of Rotten Tomatoes, but it should be. I mean, I heard the first one wasn't Like, again, it's not great, but it's fun and it's for kids. People, want. I mean, Transformers isn't good either. So.
Right, and that's what it felt like. It felt like they were doing that too. They were trying too hard to make it kind of serious. It's just like, be goofy. I don't know why they don't just make more animated movies of our favorite kids shows as animated movies. Like, take the old style and kind of put like a twist on it of Inspector Gadget and do an Inspector Gadget cartoon movie. Like, that is like, gets big budget, actors to do the voices. Do, like Pixar or, what's the other one? DreamWorks. Like, I don't know. I mean, obviously there's all the licensing issues of buying the character and the rights, but I just don't know why you don't dip into these. Cause you're going to cause our generation of watching all these cartoons are now old enough that they have kids. And the first thing we're going to introduce them to is the crap we want to rewatch, right? Exactly. So it's like, that's what Anyways. Okay. I want to talk about some of the ones. Well, let's talk about Jordan. Jordan had one that we didn't say. I think he said he had X-Men, he had animated Batman, yeah, he had Spider-Man, he had all of his superheroes on here. But one that we didn't talk about was Dragon Ball Z. He loves Dragon Ball Z. I have one complaint about this show. He made me watch a whole bunch of them when we were in college together because I didn't watch Dragon Ball Z, and he's like, "What?" I've
seen like 1 or 2 episodes. Did not get into it. But I wasn't a big anime guy either.
It's a good show. It's an excellent show. It's a fun show. But the problem with the show is like the first 10 minutes, they tell you what happened in the last episode. Then they give you like 10 minutes of like new stuff. And then the last like 5 minutes of the show is telling you what's going to happen on the next episode. So it's like, there's no content in this show. It's literally just, and they would spend the whole.
Can you imagine binge watching that? I wonder if someone's taken like the actual meat of every episode and
just done that,
stitched them together.
Because they'd have the voiceover. And the next episode of Dragon Ball Z, will Goku, and it would like, it's really dramatic. And this is the thing, they would spend the whole episode making like the spirit ball to like blast and hit somebody. The whole episode, just all this focus and energy. And then he'd miss. You're like, come on! So that was Jordan's list. But I wanted to talk about some of the favorite cartoons from the community. We asked people on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter, which you can follow us at Sit Down Standard. We asked the community what their favorites were, and I wanted to highlight a couple of these. Ones were Rainbow Bright. Did you watch Rainbow Bright at all? Or was that a little bit before you?
It wasn't the board that you put the little pegs on?
That was Light Bright.
Oh. No, I did not see Rainbow
Shout
Bright.
out to Light Bright, by the way. That is, I remember playing that for... amazing.
I remember losing the pieces after a week and being like, I can't make much now because I've lost all the right colors.
Yeah, well, you could only use because it was a black piece of like paper and you had to punch holes in it, so you could only use it once. I remember I'm like, we can't, like, we got to get this just right.
What was Rainbow Bright?
It was a little bit, I guess, before our time, but yeah, it was like a I'm gonna say Care Bears feel to it.
Okay.
Yeah, kind of like that. Doug, when
See, I caught Doug when it went to ABC. Yeah. With like Doug and Recess and all those cartoons, a little bit older, but apparently Doug was like a thing way before that. And I didn't know. I'm like, this Doug thing, this guy's pretty cool. And it's like, this has been on for years.
Yeah.
Now.
Nicktoons was Doug, Rugrats, Ren and Stimpy, and then I know All Real Monsters came out later. And then
Rocko's on that list.
Rocko's Modern Life, and there was the Wild Thornberries came a little bit later. So there was a bunch of cartoons that were in that Nicktoons.
Smashing.
Yeah. But Doug, I really enjoyed. I like the music on that show. No, they would be like banging on a trash can, and then they would like, they had a song with, they had the Beats, which were supposed to be like the Beatles, and they'd be like Killer Tofu. It was just
Skeeter was his name. It was his friend's name, right?
Skeeter Valentine. He had Patty Mayonnaise. He had Roger, who was like a jerk, and he had a cat. I can't remember what the cat's name is. The internet's yelling at me. Scratch, I think. But you had Pork Chop. That was his dog, I believe.
Oh, yeah.
And then the dog would always, they did like the Simpsons thing where Bart's writing on the chalkboard. In the middle of the episode, Doug would go into a black room, hit a light on, and Pork Chop would have written something about the episode like, Doug really likes Patty, or something like that. It was great. And then he would like step in it was great. It's just such a good show. And it felt like some of the issues you were dealing with as like a middle schooler, like, liking girls and like dealing with that and like bullying.
Bullies and stuff.
Yeah, it had more of that to it, but it was like fish out of water. He was kind of a nerd. Quail Man, where he wore like,
oh my god,
because he would draw
his underwear, right?
Yeah, he wear underwear on that, and his belt would be like this giant snake looking thing on top of his head. It was great. He had like, anyways,
a lot of
Batman, yeah, a lot of Batman, a lot of Ninja Turtles. Let's see. Oh, Tiny Toons. Did you watch the Tiny Toons?
Yes, wasn't a fan of the Tiny Toons because it came on like before or after Animaniacs.
Plucky, elevator go down the hole. Elmira, she would like, so many great things in here. And I think Tiny Toons did a good job of like, making fun of its source material. And I think Bugs Bunny would show up, or they would talk about like, it was kind of like Teen Titans and Justice League. They would be like, oh, the guys, the grown-ups, losers, you know what I mean? It would make fun of that stuff. Speaking of Tiny Toons and like the younger version of it, Muppet Babies. Do you remember Muppet Babies?
I do remember Muppet Babies, yeah.
Oh, such a good show. I wish they'd bring that back. They're bringing back the Muppets. Why not? Bring back Muppet Babies. The thing about that too,
Disney on it, maybe.
the animation style too was kind of like a fairy tale looking, like Mother Goose, Grimm's Tale type thing.
Yeah, I don't remember it, but...
Yeah. Also on here we've got Tom and Jerry.
Yeah, I had a Tom and Jerry 25th anniversary VHS that we would watch. Like, that was the only thing we had, and we would watch that all the time. A little story here. My name is Gerald, obviously.
Yep.
My brother's name is Thomas. So we were called Tom and Jerry all through elementary school.
So
it was the worst thing ever. Though our mother and father did not name us these names because they're jerks. They name us Tom and Jerry because like my grandpa on my mom's side is Thomas, and then Gerald
just happened
on
to
my
be.
dad's side. It just happened to work like that. But it's like, really, you're gonna send a kid in an elementary school named Tom and Jerry?
and you guys were twins,
really?
so there was like not like a couple years apart where people might not put it together.
No, it was bad.
One that was probably number 6 on my top 5 was DuckTales. Woo!
DuckTales, yeah, that was a good show.
Oh, I love DuckTales. I remember Launchpad McQuack. Just such a good show.
Chip and Dale were on that, right?
They weren't on it. No, they had Rescue Rangers. That was the
Oh, that's one thing.
Rescue Rangers.
Yeah.
Chip and Dale. All of the songs on these were just fantastic. Let's see. We had Rocko's Modern Life, which is another Nicktoons. Let's see what else we've got on here. You said The Tick already, which was great. Oh, here's a couple. So then a little bit, as we got a little bit older, then you had Cartoon Network, which originally Cartoon Network was owned by Ted Turner, and he would just show like Hanna-Barbera reruns. So then they started using it like Space Ghost, which we had a suggestion here from Sarah. Sarah said one of her favorites was Space Ghost. Excellent show.
Every single time she mentions that, I'm like, why weren't your parents making you go to sleep by that time?
Yeah, that show was on.
I was in
late.
bed by like 7 every night.
Yeah, exactly. But they would just use that footage that they had and like recut it into other shows, which is
It's fantastic
genius.
and like
Very funny.
Yeah, it's a
C-Lab
talk show.
C-Lab 2020.
I love Sea-Lab. It's
so funny. But as they got a little bit older and they started making their own content, you had Powerpuff Girls, you had Dexter's Laboratory. Those were great, but I was a little older, so I wouldn't consider those as kids. Those are probably some of my favorites. They are bringing back Powerpuff Girls. I think
I
it
heard
might
about that.
it might actually already be out. Such a good show.
That show's funny. The few episodes that I've seen, it's really funny.
The other one that was on here was Captain Planet.
Oh, wow. When our rings combine, our powers combine.
Earth, wind, fire, water, and heart. Heart.
Wah, wah.
I can talk to animals, guys. I can shoot fire out of my ring. What is wrong with you? I could just, anyways. I remember dressing up as Captain Planet for go to school on Halloween one day. I dyed my hair green and
Oh, Jesus.
it was bad. Anyways,
Do you have a picture?
I don't have a picture, thank God.
Are you just saying that?
I'm just saying that. So yeah, thank you for reaching out to us, everybody who did in fact give us some suggestions. I had so much fun preparing for this, because again, I went back and watched all of these old cartoons. One important point, we talk about this with the Disney movies. The voice actors, they're like the same throughout almost all of these shows, at least the English versions of these. Like I was watching Inspector Gadget, the old ones, and I'm pretty sure Penny is the voice of Dora the Explorer. And she even does like,
Really?
This lever looks like the right one. Like long pauses and like waiting for the kid to be like, yeah, it's like,
Interesting.
yeah, it's interesting to see all that. So that is our top 5 cartoons of all time. Lots of fun. You should go
Good
watch.
stuff.
Go watch cartoons. I think as a general rule.
I was just going to ask you, what are your favorites, let's just say, I don't know, throw some out, cartoons you like watching now?
Well, I'll watch any of these, but the ones that we talked to, you're a huge fan. You got me into Star Wars Rebels. Mm-hmm. So excellent show. Again, the animation is great in these, that CGI style. I remember back in the day watching Reboot and Beast Wars, right?
Oh, I forgot to mention Beast Wars. My honorable mentions, yeah.
Beast
Wars.
The bad CGI animation
really
stuff.
bad.
Come a long way. So I would say Star Wars Rebels is one of my favorites. And then pretty much anything in Adult Swim, because it's so weird. Like Aqua Teen Hunger Force.
Aqua Teen is still great.
I love all of those shows.
Dude, my dad works at a dealership.
I think what's interesting is obviously there is a market for cartoons for adults, which is,
Oh, yeah, for sure.
and it's just anything on Adult Swim I love. There's even one that I watched recently. I'm not really familiar with it, but it's a dog that's from hell that like kills people, and it's like this pleasant, like no one knows that the dog is this evil monster from hell. It's interesting. Your mother had sex with a dog. Anyways, go ahead.
SpongeBob is fantastic, like, still.
Yeah, I love
Is
SpongeBob.
it still on, like, new episodes?
Yeah. Yep, new episodes.
SpongeBob is hilarious. I love that show.
Well, they combined a lot of what I loved about the old school Nicktoons. Like we talked about, they have the Ren and Stimpy where they zoom in and it shows like the artistic, like pastel, or not pastel, like oil paint-based painting, super detail. All of it's great. The characters are great. It's funny.
There's a part where, like, I forgot which episode it was, but sent SpongeBob an invite to some party, like, above the water or something like that. And he's like, he's reading the letter and the ink is all smudged because they're underwater. He's like, this doesn't make sense. Don't they know we live underwater? And then he, like, lights a campfire.
That is great when they make fun of the whole meta thing. Yeah, there's parts of that show that makes no sense. But I like his friend, the squirrel. I can't remember her name, but she always wears she always has to wear a tank. And then
it was like an astronaut's outfit.
Yeah, so much fun. So those are the ones. What about you? Other than SpongeBob, Star Wars Rebels, I know because you're always talking about
canon. That and like Clone Wars. Yeah, those are both really good. South Park's excellent. Anything on?
Yeah, South Park is fun. I for some reason I just don't associate that with a cartoon for some weird reason. I don't. It feels it is a cartoon. Obviously, it's funny to go back and watch their original. Like it was like that cut paper.
You can see it. Yeah.
Yeah. It's interesting. I watched that whole documentary how they can make it in like 3 days. It's ridiculous. That's super cool though.
That's really good. Simpsons, of course. Like I haven't seen any of the new stuff, but going back and seeing the stuff when we were like growing up, those episodes, the old stuff.
It was okay. I just wasn't a big fan of the Simpsons. Funny. I don't know. For some reason, I just didn't connect with it. I don't know.
Maybe we should go back because all the episodes are online now. Simpsons World or something like that.
Yeah, they showed on when FFX came out. They did like they did every single episode in order chronologically.
It's like a week.
Yeah, it took like it's impressive how long that show's been running. I mean, just for like the standpoint of like getting funding to do the show, because like
apparently it's still relevant. I mean, a lot of it's pop culture. I mean, that's kind of ever since it came out. A lot of the
whole saying?
Pop culture, but
Simpsons has done everything. Like no matter what it is,
Simpsons did it.
Exactly. But yeah, we encourage you go watch cartoons. They're fun. And you know what? In the comments down below, if we didn't say one of your favorites, let us know.
Just mention it. Yeah.
Let us know, because we're always looking out for new cartoons, and we'll watch old ones, don't worry. Like I said, I'm going to keep doing research, even though this episode's over, for my favorite cartoon. Yeah, exactly. All right, we'll wrap it up. You can always follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. It's @SitDownStandard. Or, of course, you can send us an email like Paul Sawyer III did. What's the email address?
SitDownStandard@gmail.com, and we'll answer your questions, obviously. Give us suggestions, comments.
Yeah, we'll give you a big shout-out on the show. Like, George, what did you say last week? Just tell us how you're doing.
Yeah, just say, hey, weather's great outside, guys. Love, listener.
Yeah, check out our preview videos, which I talked about, and we'll be doing more review videos. I'm going to get us doing some Let's Plays. We did that for a while. We need to do more of that. But anyways, till next time. Bye.
See ya.